But out of respect for everyone's time, we're going to get started here today at 5 after. This is Betsy Scott, the Executive Director of Programming and Engagement with the Housing Innovation Alliance. And actually, most of our team is in the room today. If you guys just want to give a shout out, Rachel Kelly is here in case you chime in, Rachel. Just say hello.
Hello, hello.
Rachel runs, she's the Executive Director of the community and the business end of the Alliance. And Natalie is my co-host today.
Hello, everyone.
And Natalie runs the engagement of members, so she's going to be reaching out to you guys after the call as well to see if there are other thoughts that you had, other people you wanted to share information about the Alliance program with. We're looking for any feedback we can get from you on the call today, as well as anything, you know, on an ongoing basis that you want to share with us. I think you're automatically muted when you come in today, but you will have the ability at any time if you have something you want to share with us to unmute yourself and just kind of chime in and let us know what you think. And then there are a couple of times that we're actually going to kind of call on you and ask you for feedback. And the final person in the room today is Michael Dickens.
Hi guys, Happy New Year all.
And Michael is the Vice Chair of the Alliance, working with George Casey as our chairman, and he's also acting as our president, so helping us look at our growth strategy for the Alliance over the next several years, make sure that we're serving the industry properly. So thanks for being here, team, and thanks for being here on the phone, everyone, today. So we just wanted to start off the year kind of the right way and give you a 30,000-foot overview of what we're intending to do this year, and really where we see the Alliance playing a role in innovation in the industry. All of these things are coming about really from feedback from our community, from feedback from our board of advisors, and from chats that we're having internally in the team. But really the beauty of this is that we're always looking for feedback from our community, and if we need to course correct, or dig deeper into something we weren't thinking about, we'd like to know that from you, and we're open to any and all feedback that you guys might have. So that's really the purpose of what we're doing here. As an organization, our big vision is the affordable American dream. So if we step back and say the American dream was always home ownership, and you know, historically, that's really become a challenge recently in terms of, you know, access to financing, the challenge for builders to be able to achieve scalability because of labor issues, and really the challenge of redefining what that means as a society we change. So that's really the kind of North Star that we're looking at and how we would deliver that. And in essence, it breaks down into just a few things. One of which is we think that quality, high-performing homes should be available either as homes, whatever the model is that the end consumer wants. They should be available and affordable for the average home buyer, the average dweller in the U.S. Secondly, in order to get there, we as an industry need to be better at delivering homes more efficiently, with less labor, with material and product constraints. And we also need to kind of elevate it to the next level and collaborate more as an industry than we ever have before. And we believe that really that's the role that we can play, is kind of bringing those ideas together and then helping transform the industry through what we call collaborative innovations. We get all coffee hasn't kicked in yet, all the smartest people in the room together to share ideas, innovation needs they have, successes that they've had, and really elevate the discussion and learn from each other. And ultimately, if we pick an end user in mind, we would like to help the production home builder and developer deliver better homes and be better businesses. We think together those things will ultimately allow us to transform the industry. And we're looking at production builders because when you have a production mind, you influence more of the housing in the U.S. So that's really our focus, and we're excited about the people that we have engaged in the community and the folks that are on the call today. So the approach that we're taking is looking at what the future home building business might look like. And if you look at this wheel, we tried to divide in a slightly different way than you as a builder or developer might look at your business and look at new strategies and consumer insight. This would be your pre-production strategic level. What can we do to better drive the integrated design and delivery process so that you deliver a more quality product more effectively and efficiently, ultimately more profitably for you, hopefully more affordably for the end consumer? And then what can we do to really learn from other industries like consumer electronics, like pharmacy, to deliver a better customer experience and develop those relationships that can reap rewards for both the customer and the building organizations in a longer period of time. Yep, and ultimately the vision needs to be and move in the direction of looking at innovation as an integrated process and looking at a business as a cloud-based system. And how do you connect then to your partners and your suppliers and your trade contractors as well within this vision? Now, when we look at this, we've got, so we look at it holistically here, but we also have, I would say, in essence, channel partners who take the business models view. That's really George Casey as our chairman. He has a Wharton MBA, and he was in operational leadership for a number of years within building and development organizations. So certainly he's suited to lead that and really pull ideas from other minds in the community. Consumer values, that's my sweet spot. I was in consumer marketing before I was in the housing industry. Have a bent toward design. And then on the production and productivity side, that's really where Michael leads the charge and tries to identify the best experts and companies to bring in on that front. So this is just the approach, and as we're doing all programming throughout the year, we look back at this as kind of our touchstone. So where does the conversation fit in the idea of the future home building company? And what are these perspectives, what do we see from these different perspectives as we're looking at a topic or an issue? But as I've said before, and I think George says this better than anyone else, this is his quote, all of us are smarter than any one of us, so we're grateful to have you guys on the phone today, and I'd be remiss, and Rachel might kill me if I didn't take the opportunity to thank our partners for supporting us in the program. And you'll see there's actually a new category here this year that's really meant for, you're going to start seeing some cool startup companies here, as well as service providers. Whalen Advisory, Margaret's on our board of advisors, has been a great help to us. Ferguson and Whirlpool are also new this year, as is Standard Industries. So you'll see this evolve, these players evolve a little bit over the course of the next couple of months. But thank you if you're on the phone or if you're watching this after the fact for your support and making this program possible. We really do appreciate your input. So here's a snapshot. I think we're starting to catch up. Welcome and about the Alliance is meant to be those first 5 minutes, but really the CES highlights that I'm going to share we can go through pretty quickly. And then the intent really is to kind of delayer that donut, if you will, the future of home building donut from a topic perspective and share with you where we intend to go this year. Predominantly in the context, because I think it's the most illustrative to look at the summit, since that covers the entire agenda. And then we'll just highlight for you a little bit of a couple things that are coming up next. But if you have ideas, this is going to be fairly informal. Please unmute yourself and say excuse me or cough or something, and let us know that you have something that you want to share, and certainly we'll open the floor to you. That's what you're here for. We want to hear from you. And there's also a chat function on here. Natalie is watching that, so if you want to make a comment discreetly and have her share that with us on our end, we can do that as well. But just quickly, I was a bit dumbfounded, and I know I've never been to CES before. Michael, you want to? CES? The Consumer Electronics Show. Yeah. And I think it's kind of funny because even in the last year, and I think that's why IBS is in February this year, there was a big shift in people's interest, at least on the manufacturer side and starting on the builder side, to see what's going on with CES and how does what's happening there influence what we're doing on the building side? There's a massive amount of stuff there. There were 150,000 people there, and there's probably only maybe 10% of the agenda that's really relevant to the builder. But I thought, since we're looking at innovation broadly, it's really inspirational when you can see, and I think one of the key takeaways from it, whether you're interested in buying any of the technology or not, is that if you can dream it or think of it, you can do it. And there were some amazing things there, and I'm just going to share a couple of more practical highlights that are relevant to housing today. But I think it should tell us that those people haven't operated in a vacuum. A lot of them have strategic partnerships, and they look at problems and they solve problems. So I think we as an organization can look at problems and solve problems as well. So I found it kind of an uplifting way, if not overwhelming, right, Michael?
I've been to many shows. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen.
So it was three areas within, throughout the strip if you haven't been, and it was crazy. So I just wanted to share, and I thought there were some interesting connections to Hollywood. So I just wanted to share a couple highlights from things I saw there that I thought would trickle into the housing space that were really interesting. These are just two photos. If you've seen either of these movies, this is Ex Machina. So this is a very, very lifelike robot who has a dialogue and seems human and creates relationships with people. And then this is actually just the voice who's doing that in the movie Her. But it's an example of how Hollywood kind of is preceding what's actually coming to the marketplace in general. And there was a cool thing going on there. Voice has been big for the last couple of years, but it's really amazing the opportunities that are there in some of the companies that are focused in that area. So we're going to be watching that for you and sharing it with you. But a couple of the things I wanted to make sure I pointed out were there are people looking at solving the problem of actually when you're talking to Alexa or even when you're using a search function like Siri, just being able to use a normal phrase like you would ask a human being and having the engine or the device be able to follow what you're talking about and respond intelligently to you. And one example somebody gave me, and this company SoundHound was at the Connection Summit, which was Parks and Associates. One day, bunch of sessions there, some great highlights we'll share with you in the next newsletter. But they were talking about the ability to give compound ideas and have your devices respond to them, like book me a flight to, Alexa on Travelocity, book me a flight to Seattle for these dates. And then you could say, what's the weather like there? And it would give you the anticipated weather for those dates. It would assume that there was Seattle and the dates that you were talking about or the recent search that you did. So really exciting things I think could happen there, as well as watching not only what you're saying, but your tone and your gesture, which is very cool. This was another theme, Sekisui House, first Japanese housing company or actually company in general as big as they are to exhibit at CES. But they've got sensors that are actually monitoring people's bio data. And if somebody has a health issue that requires emergency services, their house is able to alert emergency services and bring it to them. And then another company, Greystone Group, is actually doctors who are looking at how your house could really become your physician in the future. So really cool things that could become part of that healthy home value proposition for builders at a different level than you've ever seen before. And then there were a lot of what I thought were really more pragmatic, boots on the ground things that were going on. Lennar and KB Home both shared a bit about what they were doing in the smart home space. Lennar, I think, pointed out something really interesting in terms of installation versus integration, and saying that it was very important and you wouldn't be successful unless you provided that service component of being able to explain to people how things work together in the way their Comcast provider might when they set up somebody's cable. As a builder or as a housing consultant, if you're working with a builder on a smart home package, that needs to be part of that. Otherwise, Lennar said you risk somebody coming in and saying your system doesn't work and ripping it out. Even if there's nothing wrong with it, you can create some customer satisfaction issues there. So that's something to be aware of. And then certainly you've probably seen a lot about this, and we'll see more, and we'll share it in the newsletter. KB was saying they know that not everything's figured out. Some things will become obsolete. But right now in their houses they're delivering, they've got 15 connected devices. They have 250 in the KB Home project. That's with a layer of Healthy Home on top of it as well. So they're already looking at expanding in that direction.
And the KB Home project was demoed there, right? Or it's in proximity.
It's in proximity, so if you're going to IBS, there should be other opportunities to see it next month in February. That's a great point, Michael. And there are some other good highlights from our discussion with Jacob that we'll share from Connections as well. And then there are some cool things going on in terms of the technology. A lot of people are focusing on how to update the software, not the device, so to deal with obsolescence. And make the systems last longer, so you have less to worry about on that front. We have a couple that are solving problems for you. Square D is an interesting one where it detects your systems in the house and actually starts tracking the electrical for you, and you can turn off and on what they're doing. So we'll give you some more details on this, but a lot of systems that do things for you that then you just say, stop doing that, or I like that, and start watching it as well. So taking some of the responsibility out of the end user's hand. And I thought this was interesting from Google and Microsoft. They are actively looking at ownership of the data and saying that that should stay with the end user, which is counterintuitive to what we would think that they would say. So that's the tack that they're taking, and something to explore as well. And then ultimately looking at how all the tech people refer to these things as ecosystems, whether it's an individual product or a bunch of things connected to each other, which was a different term for me to hear over and over again. But saying that those need to be flexible over time, A, to allow the technologies to evolve, and B, to also allow you or your consumers to decide how far they want to dip their toe in. So I'm just going to move on, but I wanted to share some of that and look for more of it in the newsletter. And if anyone has attended CES, at any point on this call or even an email, just let us know if there are any cool things that you saw that we should be sharing as well. We would love to do that. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving and go through the 2019 program. So to reiterate, we're moving toward the affordable American dream. I think this will be a theme for us ongoing, moving forward. It is that North Star. And if we look at the program balance for 2019, 30% of what we're doing really will be in the business model area. So strategically, how do you set yourself up as a company from an operational perspective, finance perspective? I've highlighted customers for life because I think really except for, I believe, AHV Communities, who does rentals, you do this already. But I think a lot of the builders and developers that we deal with are still, that 10-month window after sale or getting somebody in their homes and looking to extend that relationship. So 30% on strategy, 20% on consumer values. So really, in essence, these are the setup for what you're going to be producing and delivering in the field as your product and your value proposition as well. And then 50% of our agenda, really, which is still for us, if we put the production builder and developer first, this is still where the rubber meets the road. And for those of you who participated last year, we were heavily focused on offsite. That's still part of this equation, but it's within production and productivity instead of being the predominant focus. Because we really heard you guys saying, hey, we're interested in it. We appreciated the deep dive. Now we want more beyond just offsite construction in this area. So that's the balance of this year. It's the balance for the summit as well. So I thought that would be a good way to give you guys some context. That's how the agenda is going to unfold at the event. So it's coming up in the next few months. The first is in parentheses because that's the travel day, or if you want to attend some tours, we're going to be doing some cool tours locally of different technologies, different customer experience practices within the market that you could choose to go to a tour. We'll have a networking event before, and then really that wheel that we just looked at, we'll delayer that and how it's going to unfold over the second and third during the event. So we're super excited that Cheryl Palmer from Taylor Morrison is going to be our keynote. So she's going to start off the program for us. And really, nothing is highlighted here because she's going to touch on, to a certain degree, everything. But I know priority-wise for them, they're looking at the customer experience, both in terms of the end customer and their staff. Because they say that if your employees are really happy and they're your best evangelists, then the customer experience in general is going to be better and you're going to be more successful. And then certainly she's going to be talking quite a bit about production and productivity and the idea of going into new markets and new strategies. But really she's going to set the tone for the event and give her view, like we normally do, of the future of home building, but according to Taylor Morrison. And then we'll give you our view to tee things up for the day as well. But this parallels how we're looking at the agenda for the year. So from a consumer values perspective, earlier we said 20%, that's going to be the morning of the first day of the event. But if you sum it up in one phrase, when we look at consumer values for this year, we're looking at affordability and how we live in today's household and how that unfolds, looking at it from a few different angles. So we'll always provide driving trends, whether it's some insights from Myers Research, it's some insights from our design friends. I know Bassani and Lagoni is on the phone, and others will provide some context for why we're looking at what we are. But we want to see what the impacts are on design based on the changes in household today, how we redefine that customer experience. And look at really the house and the housing process as another huge consumer product and see what we can learn and apply from other industries like consumer electronics, like the automotive industry. And then as a builder or developer, as you're engaging your voice of customer, how does that influence how you drive your business and how do you go throughout that engagement process? So really when you're on the wheel, that's where that's the confluence, the consumer insights, which is before the house is built or the product is defined, I should say, and the customer experience when somebody is actually selecting their home and they're building their house. So I don't know if anyone has any questions at this point, and if anybody doesn't, I might turn around and pick on someone. But I'm going to invite you, Michael, to see if you have any comments to ease people into this on the consumer values side.
Comments. Yeah, I think it would be starting to think of the house almost as a product. If you think what Apple has been amazing, what they've done with their phone, what is the complete experience of someone having a phone, playing their music, doing their email, looking cool, taking photos? So I think you're going to have a lot more of that influence in the house. You touched on the consumer electronics show there, the connected home. This kind of way that connects back, whether you work partly at home or entertainment. And we haven't done a lot the last couple of years in this. I know you did about 3 years ago. So I think the time's come to, get that consumer back in our minds. So I like your 20% balance. Might be more next year, but this year 20 feels good. Yeah,
I think it's the feet wet, and it's, in my mind, it's kind of informing how we look at the integrated design process and so forth as well.
And with that, just last point, as we showed at the summit last year when we talked about the millennial and the baby boomer, it's like they're both looking for these plus minus 2,000 square foot homes, but different qualities and values. And, one's got the need, the millennials, the other's got the money. So.
All right, I'm going to pick on someone, Deanna Moore from Bassani and Lagoni. Deanna, if you have any thoughts on this front, Natalie just unmuted you, and you could unmute yourself as well.
Hi there.
Hi there. How are you?
Well, I actually have Mark and Ken from our office in the room with us too, because we were so interested in what you were going over this morning for us, afternoon for you guys.
Great.
So yeah, we're really interested to hear about the balance and how the consumer values plan and the different pieces and seeing what the consumer needs. And that's something that we've been talking about in 2019 is what's going on in the consumer mindset. So being able to collaborate with others and see what's happening around the country in the different markets is going to be a great experience.
Fantastic. Do you have any particular types of consumers that you're looking to develop core product for, core approaches for now from a design perspective, or is it just really looking holistically at innovation in that area?
I think the two big ones are active adults and then single family detached for rent are the two things we're looking at the moment.
Perfect.
Cool.
Great. And that actually dovetails into the next section that we're going to talk about as well. If anybody else at any time has comments, let us know. But thanks for that input if you want to use them. We'll just move on to the next segment, which is the business model section. And you teed us up very nicely because there's a bit of overlap. We didn't highlight customers for life and consumer values, but there is a touch of that there. What does the customer for life model mean to the consumer themselves? And here we're kind of looking at it from a business model perspective, from what does it mean to the builder. But when we look at business models in general, and I'm going to play George for a minute, and Michael, please jump in at any time if you think there's anything you can add to, because you guys have different perspectives than I do on this front. But we want to look at business models. What's the opportunity, and how can it be sustainable for the housing provider? So how can, what are new opportunities in that area, and how can they help their business and give them success moving forward so they make good investments, good changes in their business models. And at the same time, being affordable for the housing provider, allowing the housing provider and the industry deliver affordability to the customer. So that's really what we're looking at.
Just talking about jumping in, I think Mark Wolf's on the phone.
Yep.
I don't know, Matt Blank from BB Living. We know Camden Homes, our buddy Cyrus. 3 years ago, George Casey was talking about this. It almost seemed single-family detached homes for rent was kind of a nice idea, a bit of an anomaly. I was fascinated to read the article of the investment or the venture now with Matt's business, BB Living and Toll this week. You look at Toll as a big top 5, top 10 builder, diversifying their revenue streams, investing in technologies. That's fascinating. That's what we've been professing in the Alliance. It's nice to see it coming. And I think the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see a lot more, because I know my kids, 26, 23, they often don't think of owning. They're thinking of borrowing. They're thinking of sharing. And more of that's going to come in housing.
Absolutely. And also on the Toll, on the same level, we did our live roundtable on offsite financials in November. And Keith Fell was there and said, hey, what I'm looking for as an opportunity is as the Toll integrated system, so the offsite construction arm of Toll, partnering with some of the offsite providers and markets that I don't currently serve to get additional bandwidth. So that's a manufacturing business model, but that's another angle that we'll be looking at, because that really allows opportunities for scalability for Toll and sustainability over time, because they're not making huge capital investments in those factories. But really it spans, really the business models cover these two things in terms of new strategies and customers for life. And they also really influence how, once you get past this point, how you design and deliver and service your customers as well. But these were just some of the key things that we talked about. So the core, customers for life, pretty standard. Single family rentals, as you said, is getting bigger. And I think there was just a trend article in Builder Online about how, in a way, that's taking off like they've not seen before this year. I think there was something in John Burns's feed on that front as well, some research on that front. So that's an area that we've covered before, but we want to get beyond why you should do it to kind of how you do it, and some of the mechanics of it I think people have expressed an interest in, so they can take it beyond theory and more into practice. We're also going to be looking at expanded service and warranty models. So those are different ways of connecting with your customers who might be living in your single family for sale, or even in your multifamily communities. And then certainly the Internet of Things and data as a strategic edge initially, and also as, you know, what's that expanding revenue opportunity there. There was some humming about that at CES last week, but I don't think anybody's figured out where that's going yet. But I think that's something that we need to start putting on toward the front burner as conversation. I think it's a good area for us to expand into. So I don't know if anyone's got any other feedback on that front, but I'm going to pick on somebody else. Why don't you hit Derek Lester or Brad McCall or Derek Lester on the phone? Do either of you guys have any thoughts on that front as well? And I know we're putting you on the spot if you're, we are unmuted. You're both unmuted now. Oh no, Brad's not unmuted yet. Maybe they remuted themselves. Oh well. If you guys have any thoughts, if anyone has any thoughts on the phone, like I said, we're going to send you this afterward. So if you need to digest it, I understand. This one is a little out of my normal wheelhouse as well. But if you come up with anything, have any feedback or ideas on this front, certainly send those our way. So to finish out the wheel, this is Michael's area, but I'll tee it up and then let him riff for a bit. Production and productivity, like I said, this is going to be 50% of the agenda. So really those first two pieces of the wheel, at least at the summit, we will have handled in the first day. And then day two is really going to focus on optimizing delivery of the home and how technology, people, and processes help drive that, whether you're building on-site or whether you're building off-site, or anywhere in between, really. So that's the focus for the summit over those over that day. But we started getting a bit more into integrated design last year, and that really being something that we need to look at as an industry, regardless of what you're doing with delivery of homes, and connecting not only the data points and the design elements, but also the people who are part of that design process from start to finish. Leveraging technology and data before and during the delivery process, certainly gaining efficiencies there. What are some of the simple things you can do? Some of the, shucks process improvements that builders and manufacturers and their partners have learned over time that you could apply today that will allow you to leverage labor as effectively as possible as you move toward more of a blended delivery strategy. And then we're going to look further, certainly reducing waste and increasing profitability, and where we can provide as many real numbers and business impacts as possible, we'll do that. And in any of these scenarios, we'll bring experts into the fold to share their ideas to spark the conversation. But then really where some of the magic happens is when we'll do the think tank approach or the group discussion approach online or live at the summit, where we'll give you starter questions to kind of root into the issues and talk further innovation-wise.
I think you summed it up well. A couple of points to add. You're going after affordability and producing a new level of value to that consumer. One of the main drivers of that is the product design, how you design that house with less waste than whether it be in the floor space, the way the house works, how many corners and complexities you got in the fundamental box, the shell. that where BIM starts to come in, integrated design, and how you're starting to look at a home design for productivity. You know, whether it be using components in a better way, which will bring in process improvements in the handoffs or the waste reduction. If using panels and maybe even things, some people are interested in modular baths and kitchens, you know, the complex areas. So I think we're going to see a lot more. I'm picking up my little Apple phone here. This is a complete integrated product from start to finish. A house hasn't been. Some gurus are looking at that, and I think for the Alliance to really own this area. And that bottom line, what are the real numbers? You'll only drop prices if you can get productivity.
Right.
You'll only get productivity if you get more integrated design and better components and technology. And so I think linked to that vision, we'll be trying to show the best of the best in that complete, you know, approach, and yet not taking our eye off some baby steps.
Right.
I know you've got plans in the BIM work, the integrated design, to show some current technologies, current tips and tricks, current learnings, and, you know, lessons from the process. So.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I failed to point out, and I just want to highlight it, is we talked about all sorts of fancy technology when we were talking about the Consumer Electronics Show. Some of this technology is BIM, and it is sensors in walls, and it is stuff like that. And some of it is as simple as how can you use, and I say this tongue-in-cheek a little bit, dumb technology like your smartphone to actually, as a better process, and that may be all that you need to start better communication and to actually move the ball forward. So we know, you know, people have limited budgets to invest in technology, so we're looking at all sorts of technology there, as well as, you know, if you get super sophisticated robotics. So we'll be looking at technology from all sorts of angles. So I want to make sure I highlight that. So again, if anyone has any comments, has anyone typed anything into you? Nope. Okay. Again, this is a lot for you guys to digest, and you know, we're making a good clip, and if I can stop early and let you think about it and get back to us later, we'll do that instead. So look for these slides from us after the call. We'll just shoot this out to you by email, and then I would invite anyone, if you have any comments on this, and don't leave quite yet, but if you have any comments on this, to share those with us through email, or even, you know, we might send you a quick survey, but you can choose how you reply. The important thing is that we just want some input from you, in whatever form or fashion that is. Rachel and I will also be at the Builder Show next month. So if you want to have a powwow and chat with us more in depth and bat around some ideas, we're open to that always, either by phone or even in person next month. So I think our emails went out in the newsletter earlier this month. We had a trigger point if you wanted to schedule a meeting with us that would shoot either one of us an email. We'll do that again, but feel free when we follow up with you. We'll put all of our team's contact information in this, but feel free to reach back out to us and let us know too.
I think the other thing to add, any of you guys on the phone, if you have cool insights, cool information on any of these donut pieces, share them if you would, because we're building a repository on the portal. There's another new member of the team, part-time Nicole, who'll become, you know, working with Natalie, sharing these insight pieces. So the more we can collect, what was your phrase? All of us are
smarter than any one of us.
So share the stuff, what you can, and we'll do the same. We'll reciprocate and get it back out for you and store it with you.
And one of the things we want to do too is we'll be looking at all sorts of, to Michael's point about Nicole, we'll be looking at all sorts of disparate pieces, articles from Builder, things we see at trade shows, best industry reports, product videos, whatever they might be. And we'll share little snippets of those through, you know, with Natalie through social media, but we'll also digest that for you and give you what we think the high points are, kind of like we started today with CES and we'll continue with that in the next couple of weeks. So So look for that and feel free to share any ideas. I sent you guys the link to this, or at least made the link to this available upon the registration process. This is a new age version of calendar that we would call calendar in the round, which is just intended to give you a scannable view of the agenda for the entire year. You see that 15 right there, that's today. So any other calls like this are these little green dots. We've also got something with more of a presentation and expert panel focus on that you can attend virtually, which is our virtual roundtables, these green things. And then all of our live events around the course of the year are in orange. But I would encourage you to visit our website. We're updating the event section right now, so it's not as functional as it will be hopefully in the next few weeks. But for now, there is a clickable graphic like this, that if you open it, it will be an interactive PDF, and it's actually the direct link that I sent to you in case you lose it. But we'll keep that updated over time, and anything that's scheduled formally with a date, you'll actually be able to mouse over these things and click on them, and it'll take you directly to the event page with more information on them.
Do you want to touch on maybe the immediates? There's a Florida up.
See, he didn't look at my slides first. So the very next thing that we've got going on, if you guys are interested, is we're going to Orlando for a quick road trip. Those tend to be a day to 2 days long. The 12th is in parentheses here. If you're interested in coming, Tavistock is getting us a discount at the hotel by Lake Nona. So we can stay pretty close, on site at Lake Nona, which is one of the most advanced, smart and healthy home communities in the country, if not the world. But we're going to be hanging out with the Tavistock folks in the morning. We'll also be looking at Buddy Rainey of Rainey Construction, who does an advanced panelization solution. We'll see some of his homes going up in the field in Lake Nona, and then we're going to kind of backtrack that process and go into his finish the day out in his factory and see what they're doing to get things ready to go to the field. But here we're really covering smart home, healthy home, master plan community innovation, as well as some offsite construction among the two. So it'll be fun. Registration is open now. It's for members and partners only. Partners are free. Thank you again for your support this year. That's just our thank you to you for making the whole agenda possible. And it's just a nominal fee if you're a member to participate. That helps us cover food, buy you dinner, buy you lunch, breakfast, and that kind of stuff. But you can get more information by visiting the bottom front of our website and clicking on the link for the road trip. And then, as I mentioned, the summit is coming up. A bit more detail on what we covered today and how that would flow over the course of 2/2.5 days with those tours on Monday will be on our website, and registration will be open tomorrow. And then just keep watching over the next couple of weeks on that webpage. We'll just continue to add our confirmed speakers and more information on the agenda. But the hotel room block is open as well, so we'll be sharing both of those links at the same time for you. So look for those details by email today. And again, George would be so proud. We're finishing 10 minutes early. But thank you guys for your time today. And thank you again to our partners for making the event possible. Before we go, I'm going to turn to Michael in a minute for any closing thoughts, but Natalie, just to make sure we don't leave anyone hanging, do we have any comments or anything? Nope. Okay. We will reach back out to you, so look for emails afterwards. Any closing parting thoughts, Michael?
Well, I think first, maybe thanks to you, put this on, and Natalie and Rachel and team. I think we're building momentum on this program. You're learning as you go, but I think you got a great plan for this year. You're listening to the members and partners, so you're reflecting what they're hearing and able to look down and give a helicopter view. So I think you got a great program. I love what we've been doing with George's help the last year or two at the summits, where we dig deeper I think you've done a nice job putting the right players around each table. You've mixed the right minds, and then we, do 20 minutes of presentation and then 30, 40 minutes of discussion at the tables and then debrief as a room. So I'm kind of excited to see what that's going to be like in 4 months. So
absolutely. And one parting thought on my end, and that was a great reminder, Michael, is that everything that we discussed today and at IBS, leading up to the summit and at the summit, will really help us choose what those rabbit holes are that we go down later in the year. So do we have a one-day event that's totally focused on IoT and smart home, and because that's where people wanted to get the most traction? And what do we hear from you at the summit in terms of the additional data that you need that we can, with Nicole, go do some market intelligence, find the best players and get them in the room, whether it's a virtual event online or one of those road trips or that live roundtable later in the year. But as you guys stay engaged and keep giving us feedback, I think it will, the more you give us feedback, the more we'll be able to deliver for you. So again, thanks for participating today, and look for information on upcoming calls that we have that will be a bit more working session focused, as well as our virtual roundtables that will have some guest speakers and some panelists who can provide some insight.
And maybe just last point, be selfish, for you folks on the team. If you want to get on the phone and pick our brain or share some thoughts, drop an email, but let's do it. Let's talk a little deeper than this. Was quite one way. It was on purpose to share and ask, but more interaction. Anything you're thinking of, share it with us. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for participating today, and we'll turn today's session into a recording in case there's anyone that is on your team that you want to share this with, or anything you want to listen to again before you provide feedback to us. But we greatly appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks.
Natalie.